crisis is over in France. After wiping out almost half the population of Europe, the plague itself is sputtering to an end.
Infectious diseases have these natural cycles that they go through until that cycle is broken, either by human agency or by, for example, a change in virulence of the infective organism itself.
As the Black Death proceeded and as the humans began to die and society, that it was falling apart basically, it's possible that the human numbers drop down below a certain level and that these outbreaks can't maintain themselves.
The magnitude of the final death toll is so vast that it strains the human imagination.
I think the plague was unprecedented in the scope of its mortality, and I'm of the opinion that the mortality was higher than most scholars are willing to accept. I believe that the average mortality was close to 50%, not a third or 30% as most scholars claim.
Urban centers and religious communities have suffered most. 60% of Venice has been swept away in the epidemic. In Avignon, half the citizens are dead. At the monastery in Montpellier, where Guy de Chaliac received his training, only 7 of the 140 original monks are left. England is reported to have lost fully 2 million souls, a third of its total population. But Edward III, King of England, survives, as do other nobles who've taken shelter in secluded country estates.
There's a somewhat lesser death rate among the upper classes, partly because they could move. They could leave an urban area, they could leave a town, they could go out. Their castles or their manor houses might provide an environment that was a little less conducive to the contagious nature of plague.
Pope Clement VI, who deserts Avignon during the worst outbreak, is also alive and well. More amazing is the recovery of his surgeon, Guy de Chaliac. His journals record his words.
Towards the end of the plague, I developed a fever with a swelling in the groin. I was ill near on 6 weeks. When the swelling had ripened, I treated it with figs and cooked onions mixed with yeast and butter. I escaped by God's grace.
C'est un miracle, mon ami. Il faut que nous allons payer.
But for many, survival comes with a terrible cost. Having lost so much, they question whether life is still worth living. Ibn Khaldun, a 14th century Arab historian, fears that evil times are ahead.
The plague swallowed up many of the good things of civilization and wiped them out. The entire world changed.
Think about the impact of losing 15 million people. What that does to society. What that must have done to the church. What that must have done to science, to medicine, to art, to literature. What if you lost a Da Vinci in there? What if you lost a Leonardo? What if you lost a Michelangelo because of the Black Death?
You can look almost anywhere and see the traces of this loss of a third, a half of humanity. Well, I read one tombstone that said he died in the year when scarcely a quarter of humanity was left on Earth. This sense that you're part of a fragment, 25% remaining, that's it.
This is the only time in recorded history that every single person in the known world, without exception, has watched their closest loved ones die in agony. The sorrow and isolation devastate the Italian poet Petrarch.
Consider what we were and what we are. Where are our dear friends now? Where are the beloved faces? There was a crowd of us. Now we are almost alone.
But for some, rather than sorrow, the plague brings the opportunity for looting, drinking, and brutality. In the empty houses of the dead, wild excesses overflow.
Sulle mani da lei! Quella è la mia donna! Maiale!
Florentine historian Matteo Villani is outraged.
Men gave themselves to the most disordered and disordered behavior more than ever before. They rushed headlong into lust.
Still, the vast majority of survivors neither sink into despair nor wallow in excess. Most simply pick up and get on with the process of living. They never lose faith in God, or, even more remarkably, their faith in the future.
Medieval people also had the assumption that God would make all things right, that God had a plan, that the apocalypse would set things right in the end, or that there would be a renewal, a restoration, that this was not simply the end, there would be something that would come beyond.
What's amazing in a way is how quickly these societies renormalized, re-routinized, became functioning societies again.
Their faith makes it possible for medieval people to not just survive, but actually go forth and multiply, according to French chronicler Jean de Venette.
When the epidemic was over, the men and women still alive married each other. Everywhere, women conceived more readily than usual.
The pause in violence will be unbearably brief. For even as society tries to heal itself, chaos erupts once more. The old mold has been smashed, and the new one will be shaped at the point of a sword. In all of human history, only a few events are watershed moments, when everything can be identified as either coming before or after. The Black Death is one of these.
When in European history has there ever been an event where possibly 50% of the entire population died in such a quick time? It's an event like this which we can barely wrap our minds around. How is it that you can wake up one morning and be dead by the evening?
The heart-sick survivors have no choice but to go forward, for pain and loss have shattered the past.
I've often wondered whether the sense of despair and the sense of irrationality with regard to what has happened opened up minds to questioning authority, and questioning how we understand God, and questioning to what degree there is an authority that we can all turn to.
The plague cracks the church's 1,000-year-old stranglehold on religion. Many nobles decide to take their faith into their own hands.
Some families began to hire private chaplains, so that there seems to be a kind of privatizing of religion that takes place.
While the plague turns some survivors closer to God, others look for new answers in science. In Avignon, France, plague survivor Guy de Chaliac is driven to write his masterpiece, the Chirurgia Magna, or Great Surgery. The authoritative text of Western medicine for the next 300 years. He bases it not on ancient philosophy and astrology, but upon his own first-hand observations of disease.
The plague had an important impact in the practice of medicine, because when the plague arrived, the university-trained physician, who was basically an internist and didn't do really any clinical medicine,